Started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Inkbench webinar focusing on using social media to communicate your reopening plans. This will be led by Stephanie Bailey, as you can see on the screen. This is Tom McCullough speaking. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at Inkbench, and really excited to have you all with us. I'll go ahead and introduce Stephanie to you, give you an idea of what our agenda looks like, and pass it over to Stephanie to take over. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our plan for you guys today, first, welcome and introduction. I'll take care of giving you some background on Stephanie's excellent background and some of the credentials that she holds. And then we'll get into some of the key components of reopening communications for your business. That will bleed right into social media best practices and lead us to crafting a successful campaign, which is really Stephanie's expertise. And she'll be able to spotlight Inkbench with a brief demo that I think you guys are going to love, because it's a really good scenario the way that she's laid it out. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And we'll wrap up with some tips and tricks for maximizing social media benefits, followed by an open Q&A. So for everyone who's on Zoom, please keep in mind we have a Q&A window down below. Feel free to use that. We'll make sure we take note of all your questions and answer them thoroughly at the end. Next slide, please. So introducing Stephanie. Stephanie is our creative director here at Inkbench. She has an extensive background, over 7 positions across 2 decades, and rose the ranks from coordinator, designer, all the way up through directing and managing teams and defining brand experiences. One of the wonderful things about having Stephanie with us is prior to Inkbench, she was an Inkbench power user as a customer. So she's been with us for quite some time and has some unique experience that she can share with you, both from a user perspective and from a creative perspective in terms of what she's contributed to the platform. And in terms of Stephanie's role here, as creative director, she's responsible for the overall user experience of all of our subscribers. She does a phenomenal job with subscriber onboarding, and I think that's a really important aspect of our business, where we are hand in hand with you, setting up the solution and making sure that you're successful. And Stephanie also helps us out with customer success. So post-implementation, should you have a question on functionality or even design direction, Stephanie has been known to go above and beyond. So that's primarily what she focuses on here with us at Inkbench, and she is certified with Hootsuite and Google Analytics. So without further ado, I will turn the screen over to Stephanie Bailey.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to jump in with what is probably very obvious, but it's why is social media such a powerful tool for communication? If you're here today, you signed up for this webinar, you likely know that it is powerful and really important, but I wonder if you know how substantial an effect it's having on business today. So this graphic here on the left shows us what's happening on the internet in a single minute. They do these every year, the Internet Minute. But consider this, 1.3 million people logging into Facebook every minute. 190 million emails are being sent. It feels like we're all receiving at least half of those. And over $1 million spent online every minute. Every minute. Those numbers are staggering. And according to Forbes, businesses have been experiencing a tremendous increase in engagement and activity with their customers on a daily basis. And to be frank, I believe it's really unlikely for this trend to go back to normal the way it was pre-COVID as we move back into reopening our brick and mortar businesses. Your customers will still be looking to the web for information, shopping opportunities, and more. So it's important to really lean in and see, how do we use this to our advantage? So today I'm going to ask you a series of questions to keep in mind. And it's the way in which you can plan and direct any social media campaign, but especially right now on how to reopen and get people back in the doors, literally. So first, before we can talk about the what and the how of communicating your reopening plans, we need to be clear on the who. Who are you trying to communicate with? Understanding your customers, who they are, what they do online, what they're looking for is vital to developing a successful social media plan. Your audience, in fact, may be made up of multiple demographics, so you'll need to vary your strategy to speak to each demographic directly. And by focusing on one for a minute, you're not excluding the others. You're just making sure everyone is getting direct attention. Be clear on who you're trying to reach and then focus your efforts on the appropriate platforms. If you only announce your hours on Twitter, but your audience is on Facebook, your time will be largely wasted. You'll also need to make your message clear and tailored to each platform that you post to because your audience there is likely to be different. And also remember, although you're speaking to your customers, keep in mind that all of your stakeholders are paying attention. This includes employees, investors, franchise systems, so on. Social media is not the place to announce anything that these stakeholders are not already well aware of. So from what we know, nearly half the world's population is on social media every day. That number includes roughly half of the baby boomer generation, about 80% of Gen Xers, 90% or better of millennials, and frankly, nearly all of Gen Z. So that should cover most of your customer demographics. Obviously, social media here is key for any brand who wants to reach their customers directly. But the communication and engagement that you're having with your customers it's critical to establishing and maintaining that relationship because it's happening with both the individual customers that you're interacting with, but also that broader scope of users that may see your posts and see your customer interactions. In reality, the world is watching, so being consistent and thoughtful is really important. Now, to be clear, you don't have to have an active campaign on every platform. There's a lot of them. These are the most popular platforms in 2019 in the US. But you do need to know where to focus your efforts and make sure that at the very least, you're presenting accurate information anywhere a customer can find you. And when we look at these numbers, again, this is from 2019. So we know these numbers are probably up at least 20% right now. So when you consider your audience, who you're trying to reach, you need to know where you're going to find them. Facebook is popular with baby boomers. You'll find Gen Xers on both Facebook and Twitter. Millennials are more active elsewhere. They're preferring Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and Gen Z is on TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. So if we're going to go back to considering different audiences, consider this. If you're targeting Gen Z to come back in now that you're reopening, you're going to need to test the waters of TikTok or at least Instagram and get yourself in front of them. This means video, by the way. However, those customers may also need to convince their parents that it's safe for them to go into these stores and these businesses. So you'll need to target Facebook to speak with them. Knowing your audiences and the platforms will help you target your campaign more effectively. So knowing who you're speaking to is important, but so is having a clear understanding of what it is you need to communicate. And as you think about your messaging, to be honest, you need to think past, we're open, please come back. This is an unprecedented time, and we need to be thoughtful about the information that we're putting out there. While you are, I'm sure, facing a really high degree of urgency in reopening and getting your information out there, remember, your customers are nervous. While we're really eager to get back to business, we're all kind of worried about the risks that's going to come with it. So while you're feeling this urgency, be cautious not to tweet first, think later. Be considerate about what and how you post information. In this case, I recommend erring on the side of caution when in doubt. We don't, in our haste to reopen, want to make any claims that may be problematic in the future. And the work you're doing right now around reopening is laying the groundwork for future relationships with customers. So while some customers may be hesitant to stop in for your grand reopening, they may come back in 3 months or, so you've provided them with the peace of mind that you're going about things the right way. So how do we give people comfort that we, the business, are doing the right thing and are the right place for their business as compared to that sketchy place down the street. You need to consider both perspectives. You as the business owner and what you're worried about and what you really need, but also the customer. What's scary to them? What do they need to know? So, as a business owner, focus your messaging to protect yourself and promote your business. What are you doing differently or better? What are you doing to protect your employees and your team members? In what way will your operation be different or better than it was before? Are you offering any discounts or specials to people returning or maybe to your social media followers? And how can you foster a social media community that will benefit your business? Safety and concern for your employees and your customers needs to be part of your brand right now more than ever. Connect that to your brand and your brand's visual identity and be consistent. This will help a customer know that this is the right place, a safe place, a good choice for me. For your customers, put yourself in their shoes because, in fact, you're a customer too. What information do you want from the salon or the gym or the restaurant that you frequent? What's going to make you go back? What's going to make you bring your kids or your family members, your loved ones? People are uncertain and uncomfortable with a lot of these new restrictions and guidelines being placed on interacting in public. So make it easy and clear for them to know what they need to do. There's nothing worse for a parent who's out with their kids in this situation and they're milling around outside the door because they don't know what to do. Make it easy. Emphasize your safety procedures and what you're actively doing to keep everyone safe, but also tell them what they need to do. You may want to consider a survey to get a feel for what where your customers are in terms of comfort and what they're looking for in businesses. Social media gives you a direct doorway to asking your customers what they want. The key here is to emphasize what you're doing to support and protect them once you reopen, and be clear, let them know what to expect. Be aware of and speak to state and federal guidelines that may apply to your industry. The goal is to craft a unified message across all of your social media channels so that your customers feel comfortable and secure. So you want to be clear in your messaging, and it's a balance now between being creative and memorable, but also being clear and understandable, finding a way to stand out, but in a good way. You'll find that this is also a good time to repeat yourself. Share information at regular intervals to any of your platforms that you have an active campaign on for updates, but also for any customers that may have missed the first post or any changes. This is a good time to be a little repetitive or redundant. It's okay to post the same thing more than once in a day or in a week to make sure everyone sees it. Now, I want to be really clear on things we want to communicate and how we want to communicate it. So I'm going to break out my laser pointer right here. This is an example post that I pulled from Twitter. And it has a lot of things going for it. And it has the foundations of all the important things you want to include. It's got a good host of hashtags, which is important. It lets users follow you and find you more easily. It's clear, book an appointment on the website or call. It has a graphic. The graphic has a lot of information on it. I want to point out a few suggestions to help you as you craft your own campaigns, however. First, you want to lead with your content, not your hashtags, so put those down at the bottom. Secondly, make sure you proofread very, very carefully. You'll notice that there might be some confusion between our phone numbers here. And then when creating graphics are meant to catch the eye, provide key information, but not read like a book. Also, you want to make sure you brand your graphics. So if it ever gets separated from your content or from your handle, it's easy to know who this belongs to. So what I've done, real quick, to kind of give you an idea of how Inkbench might work for you, is I've recreated this post in our platform, which I think everyone can see. So right now, what you're looking at is a recreated post, and already there's some big changes happening here. I have reimagined a little bit, and I've added in the logo for the company. So that way, if this picture gets separated from the post, we know who it belongs to. You can always go back and find them. I've added only the key bits of information so that wherever this image travels, everyone knows what they need to do, and highlighted the important part. They're reopening. But we don't have to put it all here. That's what the posts box on a platform is for. Twitter gives you those 280 characters. You can use them. Also, visuals should be eye-catching and relevant. We know real quick by looking at this is a spa post. We know when they reopen, we know what their hours are, and we know how to get in touch with them and contact them. So those are the important things. And you'll see, if we go from here back to here, it makes a big visual impact. And that's the key, big visual impact. So there's also a lot of information out there around broader restrictions and requirements. Don't assume your customers know. Don't assume they're watching all of those daily updates. Provide the information that pertains to how they interact with your business. It's okay, and actually I think a really great idea, to link directly to those reputable sources. Link to the state's website, link to the Chamber of Commerce. Show them that you know what's going on and you're paying attention and you want them to know too. This reinforces your own credibility and the fact that you're looking out for everybody. Now here's another post that I think is a really good one, and it's eye-catching. The visual is perfect here. And the information is really good as far as they're working to get everything ready, and they're going to announce that in line with government guidelines that they reopen on the 29th. Now, we can do a little more, I think, with this post. So I'm going to pull that up here. So when I looked at that one, I thought, well, this is really good. And although I had to black it out here, you can see the name of the hotel in the post. So that's good. The brand is there. But maybe we could do better. So here's my own version. And you'll see it's missing just a little bit. So I want to make sure that I always add my brand logo whenever I'm posting anything. And this is a big one. Even if you're sharing an image from an event, put your watermark on it, put your brand on it, because social media and the internet in general, as we all know, has a tendency to reuse content. And you don't want your image being posted without context, or at least without you getting some credit for it. You don't want it to be taken and be used as someone else's. So put your name on it. That's important. The other thing is, it's important to include your key information. And the nice part about Inkbench here is also, I've set this up to go out on Twitter, but if my campaign is also going to be on Facebook, and maybe I have a LinkedIn following, or Instagram is also a good choice. I could do it on Instagram here. I'm going to add all those tiles to my project here. And you'll see that I have multiple options. And I'm going to export those really quickly. And what I'm going to get are 3 individual tiles, one for Twitter, one for Facebook, and there's my Instagram post. I could do a square too. And I can take all of those and I can go to my scheduling tool or my individual platforms and post them up real quick. And as you can see, I added my logo and I exported to 3 sizes. That took just a couple of minutes, which is really nice. And you can see the difference. You drop your brand in and your content, and it can go anywhere. Even if it loses your post, the content travels. So everyone will still know who's reopening, when, where do I find them. So we've covered the who and the what. So now we can get into taking more action. I recommend starting with a quick review of all of your social and digital channels. Start by getting your profiles up to date. Find all of your accounts and make sure they're accurate and the information's right. If you've been doing this a while, you may have profiles or accounts that you've stopped maintaining or forgotten about. There may also be accounts on platforms created maybe by past employees. It's time to find them and see what needs to be done. Some things to check are any links to your website or landing pages, the freshness of your photos, pin posts, messaging, operational information. This is a good time to take a look at your website, make sure that gets updated also. I recommend looking through all of your profiles and digital properties through the lens of pre-COVID and post-COVID. The world is a different place now, and make sure that the information you're promoting on your social channels is relevant and appropriate to today's world. Also, when you're going through and you're looking at all of the platforms, keep an eye out for any profiles that might seem suspicious, fake, outside of governance. You're going to want to round them up and deal with them. Most platforms have pretty clear documentation on how to get access to or how to get a profile taken down if it's inappropriate. Also, lastly, this comes from my developer background, admittedly, keep track of that username and password for every account in a centralized file, but don't share that file. Keep it safe, protect your logins. This is very important. It's also a good time to update your passwords. I want to stress that it is not required to be actively posting, have an active campaign on every profile on every platform. In fact, it's not always advantageous to do so. However, when you're trying to reopen and communicate your reopening plans and bring customers back into your business, you have to make sure that anywhere you do have information posted, that it's correct. Inaccurate or outdated information can be devastating to reopening plans. So that means check everywhere. Also, it's a good idea to make these key details easily accessible. Communicate the basics everywhere you can. That doesn't mean go create a brand new profile to do it, but if you have it, use it. That means your hours, your dates for reopening, guidelines, anything you expect a customer to do to be able to come in and interact with you and your team. But you can also communicate your primary channel for updates. So for example, although you may not do a whole lot on Twitter, you could post and say, we are reopening on the 10th. Check our Facebook page for details. So it's totally okay to link to or reference one social media profile from a different one. That's okay. You want to make it easy for people to find the information that they need. So we know the who, we know the what, and we've already taken the action to make sure we have a good foundation of updated profiles. Now it's time to make our plan. So I want to start with the who's doing what. Now these roles, don't panic, these are not new hires necessarily. It's just important to know who's responsible for what aspects of your plan. Assign responsibilities for efficiency and effectiveness. It isn't unheard of for one person to be all three. In fact, I have been that person. But it's helpful in determining needs and day-to-day tasks. Reopening will bring with it its own stress and obligations. So make sure you are staffed and prepared for engaging with your customers on social media as well as you do in person. A lot of your customers are going to still be online even when you're back in the store. So as you start to build out your content calendars and your plan, you're likely going to be creating new content and very possibly reusing existing content. It's important to make sure that with all of it, it's easy to find and you know what you're working with. You don't want to accidentally yourself or an employee pull a video that's no longer appropriate. You want to make sure all of your good content, safe to use content, is easy to find. So be a good steward. Make sure anything you create new gets added into a library so you don't have to backtrack. Anything old should be in this library, easy to find, easy to reference. And you want to make sure that whether it's you or an employee, or we're 3 months down the line and we're gonna go back and reuse some stuff, it's easy to find. I suggest finding a platform, Inkbench is an example, where you can store all of your safe to use brand content and make it easily searchable with some metadata, some keywords, tagging it, and also so that everyone who needs access has it. Because if someone can't find something easily, they're very likely to grab anything, and that's not cool. And also, lastly, back up your content. That means all of your text content and your graphics and your videos. Don't store it all on one handy little USB drive that could get left somewhere. Make sure everything's backed up. So, as we're building out this calendar, if you can, try to build out a weekly and a monthly calendar, so you have a clear picture of the work required. Your monthly calendar should identify all of the posts that will be going out and the timelines for producing the content for those posts. That's the writing and the designing and the editing and the approvals, all that. Good content can take longer than you think, and that's where having the right tools can make a huge difference. Your weekly calendar should be a detailed schedule of every post on every network, including the time it will be posted and who is actually responsible for posting it. Who's pushing the button? We got to know. Make a point also of checking the context of all of your planned posts before they go out. You may be planning a week or a month ahead. Things happen really fast. So check hashtags and content in light of any events or trends that may have come up in the time since you made your calendar. There may be something you need to add that you weren't planning on. There may be some things you need to rewrite. It's important to plan backward when doing a calendar. Plan backward from the date a post is supposed to go live to identify when it needs to get written, when it needs to be edited, when the final graphics are due, when the last date to get approval is, because sometimes leadership needs a little more time. Be realistic about what you and your team can accomplish because nobody enjoys a fire drill. Make sure your tools are efficient and effective and actually help you get things done on time. Remember, there can be a fair bit of downtime as you wait for approvals and revisions. And if you set your calendar up properly, you should be able to work pretty efficiently through all of the steps in parallel. So crafting an effective campaign means taking everything that you know, the who, the what, the how, and then using it to tell an engaging story that motivates your audience to take action. In this case, with a reopening campaign, that action should be, please come in and visit us and come back. So your workflow for creating this content should be tailored to your organization and should make it easier, not harder, to get your posts online on time. The basic steps are universal. You plan it, you create it, refine it, get it approved, make sure you get it approved, make sure it goes out on time, and then you see how it performs so that you can figure out how to do it again better. Now, more than ever, having the right tools and a clear, easy to follow workflow is critical. I strongly recommend investing in a content creation platform, preferably with an approval system baked in, a scheduling tool, and a social media monitoring platform to best support your reopening strategy. So now we're going to talk about content. Quality is key, always and everything. You're going to hear from many reputable sources, probably any source if you were just to Google this, that storytelling is the key to successful social media campaigns, and it really is. Crafting authentic, engaging content is the most important ingredient to social media. Well, to success on social media. However, today, with all the challenges and the unknowns, our stories need to be clear, empathetic, and straightforward. While you're focusing on a specific goal right now, reopening your business, bringing customers back in the door, you're also laying that foundation for what your communications in the next month, quarter, and year will look like. Social media never forgets, and your customers will remember tomorrow what you say today, and that matters. I have another post up on the screen here from Mighty Auto Parts. You'll notice I didn't black anything out because they did an awesome job, and I think this is a really good example of something. This isn't reopening specific. This was a little bit before. It was what they were doing in the midst of things, of making PPE available through their local reps. And I wanted to show you this one as a means to discuss what's possible with Inkbench as far as creating reusable templates, because this is something that you could have multiple branches use. So in this case, I created a template based on that. And I'm going to say it's the Northeast branch example. Pardon my terrible spelling while I'm going. So with Inkbench, you can create a template from a approved layout and design. Everything here has been approved for use. And you'll see that almost all of it is locked down. So if, for example, one of Mighty's reps, local reps, wanted to go in and use this on their own Twitter account, they would not be able to change the graphics or the layout or the logo. But what they can do is go through, oops, and put in a phone number for their own, and then click export, and have an image that they could very easily use, save to their computer, that they can go put on their own Twitter account right now. So in addition from a franchise system, from franchisor headquarters, you could send this out to your local teams to do what they need to do and localize the information for themselves. It could just as easily be translated for international use, or you should swap out an image for regional use. All of that works. So, and this goes immediately into this next point of protecting and respecting your brand. Be consistent. Make it so easy for a customer to see and recognize your brand and your content. Coca-Cola is held up as one of the most iconic brands for that reason. You can see just a glimpse of it and you know who's talking. You know what it's for. That's what we want to strive for. So I always recommend including at the very least your logo or a branded hashtag or some version of that on any of your posted images. Using that Mighty post as an example, any of the local branches could use it, but it was clearly identified who it belonged to, the colors, the look, the feel. Protecting your brand and your brand governance is so important. Including trending hashtags can be effective and important as long as you ensure you're using it the way it was intended. And in reopening, in reality, in rebuilding business, brand governance is going to have an important part because they haven't been in your doors in a couple of months, possibly. Let's remind them who you are, what your brand looks like, so it's easy and you stand out. And while creativity can be really useful, losing sight of your brand in images or messaging would not serve your cause. So for this post, they did a great job. It's a clear image. If you were someone who frequented this location, you'd probably know what it was. The details are there. I did black out a very small brand that was also listed, which is great. And then what we need to do, I think, is just touch it up a little bit. So I did a location reopening post, slightly different than the one that we were looking at, but I think it hits a lot of the same notes. This is where if you have multiple locations and you need to identify reopening plans that might be unique or different from one to another. So in this case, I have this set up. I am going to focus on the southeast center as opposed to the southwest center. They look a little different, obviously. So we have this great picture and we have some text saying they reopened on June 8th. But if perhaps, in fact, I need to, we've pushed it back. We're gonna go, nope, they open on the 14th, which changes our layout just a little. So we'll just tweak it and that looks really good and that's good to go. I can save it. Or I can say, you know, we're gonna do that on Twitter, but on Facebook, we are gonna do this one. And then on my Facebook tab, instead of this image, because it just doesn't look as good, I'm gonna swap that out for a new image. I'm gonna swap it out for this one. And I'm gonna give it an easy metadata real quick so I can find it later. And I'll load that in. And I'm gonna select this image, which is bright and shiny. And will stand out because on Facebook, those images are a lot bigger. especially for a mobile user, they're going to stand out. So something that's very vibrant or colorful will be more effective in this case. Twitter moves real fast. So you want short, sweet, succinct images. But Facebook, Instagram, those are image driven. So you want something bold and bright, eye-catching. So that's good. I've swapped out the image and then I can just export. And I have my Facebook tile and my Twitter tile. And this is what I mean about tailoring your content, because it doesn't have to be identical. You can do something that's appropriate for each platform and for each audience. So, real quick, I want to, as an aside, because I have to do this, I want to remind you to use your good judgment about whatever you're posting to social media. Google image search is not a resource for free images to use whenever you want them or you need something. Give credit, cite your sources when sharing anything that on social media. Make sure you're not pretending or letting people infer that it's yours. There are free resources, plenty of them, and also some very reasonably priced resources for just about any kind of content, images, things like that. Make sure also, if you're posting any images of team members, customers especially, that you get image releases. You're aware of any minors in the photographs and use your good judgment so that way you don't have any issues down the line. So I want to talk about design. Design is important. Frankly, you're never going to meet a creative director that says otherwise. However, design takes time and it doesn't usually fare well under pressure. Take some time up front and decide some layouts or designs that you're going to work with this campaign. Come up with a few go-to styles and stick with them. Be consistent with your brand and create a pool of options to use when something needs to be posted. This will prepare you for any last-minute posts as well as any planned content. So upfront work reduces the chance of errors, but it also relieves the stress of finding the right image and being creative when you're already under pressure. Even me, I'm not my most creative when I'm stressing and I'm under the gun. So you've created content, you've gotten it posted on time, and people are liking, sharing, and commenting on your posts. That's awesome. Good job. But now what? When you're creating and curating content, it may take up a bulk of your planning, but truly the most valuable aspect of social media is building an engaged community. This means the followers that engage by liking or sharing or commenting on posts. They support and promote your business, sometimes without even being asked. This may take the shape even of followers responding to someone else's question before you get a chance to. That's awesome. And it may mean, that they engage with your posts and ultimately convert to sales, because that's what we're doing this for. Social media is a two-way street. And while you're busy posting content, your audience will hopefully be engaging. Identify clearly whose job it is to monitor and respond to all messages and comments on your social media channels. Remember to say thank you. This is really important when users say something encouraging or if they mention you organically or share your posts. Maintain a pool of appropriate responses that could be easily customized depending on the situation so that you can reply to a direct message or a comment with an appropriate response that makes a customer feel heard and cared for. That goes a long way for that customer's friends and family, and really for any user who might just be scrolling along and seeing that interaction. The idea, especially for anyone in a local community, say, hey, they really pay attention and take care of their customers. That's important. Also, remember to monitor conversations for opportunities to create content or generate ideas. If you find that users are consistently asking the same question, it might be time to do a post just to answer that question. Pay attention to what you're being asked, and you're going to get a lot more from it. So this post, I couldn't help myself. I had to include it because it's a fun one, and it includes all the real key information as far as where to find the details, find out about reopening. It pushes people to one main source of updates. That's great. And it's funny. The intent here is for humor, and humor is huge on social media. but there are some flaws. Firstly, the image gets cut off because on Twitter and on several social media platforms, not all, but especially Twitter, Facebook can do it too, you only get so much space. So you need to be careful when you're creating your images that they fit in the space allowed on that platform, because otherwise you kind of lose the funny part. Yoda is down here beneath Kylo Ren, and that's what's funny, because it says my ego and then beneath it says my knees, and it's funny, but we can do a little better, I think. So I decided to show you an example of how we can be funny but on brand for our reopening. So this is, the original one was for a gym, fitness center. So I decided to do the same. And this one is a very basic background. We're going to assume this is a brand purple color. You can have some humor. At least I thought it was funny. Bear with me. But it is missing something. We need a logo because right now it doesn't tell us anything. So I did a real quick generic logo, of course. So we're going to size that to fit. We can put that down here at the corner. I think I would also suggest saying, where was it that we were supposed to go to get all of that information? Because right now we've caught their attention. It's bright, it's colorful, it's funny, it's shareable, which is important. And for more information. And I'm gonna just make this visible for you guys because obviously black on purple is a little rough to read. We'll make it a little bigger because we want it to be easy to read. There we go. And now we have a very good Twitter-sized photo. So on this Twitter tile that we use on our canvas here, it's guaranteed to fit in that space that we have here. So it won't get cut off. A user will see the whole thing. They won't lose out on the joke. And that's very shareable, especially for any sort of industry where your customers tend to be very supportive and involved. They're going to share that. That's amusing. So one last note, there will always be someone with something negative to say. So train everyone in your organization on how to respond appropriately or don't respond, depending. This means anyone who actually posts to your social media channels, but also employees and stakeholders who might be following your social media channels and may feel obligated or passionate about responding. Nothing good ever comes from arguing on the internet. So you made it. You've planned, you've crafted and posted and reacted. Your doors are reopening. Your employees are back to work and you're focused on building back up your business. Now what? Social media moves fast and changes even faster. The only thing I can tell you with any certainty is that your strategy will and needs to change. So as you move from reopening to being back to business, find a way to leverage the work that you've done here. Foster the relationships and engagement that you've been building on your social channels, and consider ways maybe to integrate social into your physical business in a more integrated way. Maybe incentivize check-ins or offer discounts to your followers, ask questions, surveys, things like that. Consider what you learn from your audience and revise your workflow. And don't be afraid of whatever comes next. Even TikTok, it's worth it. It's a good way to get yourself out there. So at this point, I guess we're ready for any questions.
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, I see one question here. Perhaps you could help to answer.
Okay.
The question is, how long does it typically take to set up Inkbench?
How long does it take to set up Inkbench? Funny, that will vary, but I can tell you I have been in a situation where we had a demo call with a customer who asked me that question. How fast could we get in here? And we said, well, it depends. Why? Well, I have a campaign starting tomorrow at 4 p.m. that I want to use it for. It was, I think, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we had just better than 24 hours. And I will tell you that their post went live at 4 p.m. and it was very nice, and they had some very good engagement.
That's
So
awesome.
we can work as quickly as we need to, really.
Fantastic. I see another question around cost of the platform. So maybe I'll take that one, Stephanie. Um, one of the beautiful things about Inkbench is it is not at all cost prohibitive regardless of the size of your organization. So we have flexible subscription licensing models. Everything's in the cloud, so you don't need to download any software or install anything. And you have the option of making monthly subscription payments or annual subscription payments. And we're so confident you're going to love it. You have the opportunity to cancel at any time. So a lot of options for you out there. And I can personally help to answer any further questions around licensing models. One more here from Darren. While using funny meme creations, what is your thoughts on using images from movies, trending memes, or do you just use generic images?
That is a difficult one. You need to be careful because you don't want to deal with copyright issues. I would say memes have their own sort of safety net, and you can probably use them safely. I would not just go out and grab screenshots or screen caps from movies necessarily, unless you were doing something really creative on top of them. I would say use your judgment. Frankly, I would avoid anything Disney. They tend to be a bit more protective than others. But popular trending memes, honestly, I think you're fine and you're safe. Anything you can do that's creative or original might benefit you even more, though.
Thanks, Stephanie. And we have another from Michael. If your organization has a sizable library of images, how would you recommend purging the old while also introducing the new ones you want to use moving forward?
So that's a good question, because your library can get extreme to a certain point, especially as you build and as you move through, and also based on basic business changes. So there is going to be a point where you want to pull some images. That
And
can
there's
happen.
costs, right,
Oh
associated with
yeah,
storing all of those images.
to an extent. I mean, I think the cost is really if you have a lot, a lot. But that can happen. So what I would say is, at least with Inkbench, I can only use that as an example. We have the option of either of expiring assets, which means they're no longer used. They can get pulled out of rotation. Someone can't go in and create a new project with them. The other option that we're rolling out in the very near future is also just being able to lock images. So even if it's not expired forever, you just need to lock it down for a while. We'll be able to do that and kind of float things to the top. We also include reporting to see what images maybe are just being oversaturated. You're just using it so much that it's time to like let it go back in, send it to the barn for a little while and try something new out to kind of freshen things up. You want to be brand consistent, but you don't want to be brand boring. And there is that fine line between it.
Excellent. I think that's about it for questions. Thank you all. A lot of good questions there. Let me just double check. Yes, we have one more. Every organization seems to have certain go-to images that get used a lot. How do you know if an image is getting overused? And Stephanie, you spoke a little bit about the feature there in your last response, but if you could expand on that a bit.
Yeah, so you can look at reporting. I mean, data is our friend for sure. But I would also say on a monthly basis, I like to scroll through your own profiles and put yourself in the shoes of a user. If you see the same image over and over and over and over again, maybe it's time to shake it up a little bit. Show you have more than one trick in the book, and be creative but consistent. I recommend kind of at the forefront creating a pool of images so that maybe you can alternate or choose whatever feels more appropriate.
Awesome. Good advice. Just going to do a quick time check, see how we're doing. 11:52. We've got about 8 minutes left before our session ends. I think we've got some more information to share. Why don't we do that, and then we will come back to the Q&A.
Yep, I have one more slide for all of you.
Wonderful. So I'll kind of jump back in here, Stephanie. Thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. Just a brief recap for all of us. You want to be able to start creating campaigns with Inkbench. That's going to allow you to build your curated brand library and collaborate with your team. Most often, especially nowadays, that team is distributed. We can easily create branded graphics for all of your social media platforms. I think Stephanie did a great job of showing us that that just takes us a few clicks. You're not regenerating that content per platform. And design reusable templates for a smarter and more efficient workflow. When I think about this particular feature, I start to think about large multinational corporations, franchises, places where localization is really, really important. So you can grab that template, and Stephanie's in New Jersey, and I'm here in New York on Long Island, and within a couple of clicks, we could localize with the appropriate area code or even an image that resonates with our region. And from a efficiency perspective, and more important, from a compliance perspective, we have streamlined approvals with without the endless email threads, right? So you don't want to have that lag in time. On the Inkbench platform, I can make an adjustment to some of the work Stephanie's done, send it right back over to her, and she can either tell me, yes, it's approved, or no, it's not. And that's a great way for us to get speed to market and get our content out in front of our audience. And finally, wanted to let everyone know we are offering a 3-month subscription free of charge. That includes our white glove onboarding services. You would actually get the opportunity to work directly with Stephanie for some of these. Contact us in any way that you like by the end of the month. So at the end of the post the webinar today, we will send out some follow-up emails. There'll be a link there if you want to go ahead and just quickly sign up for your 3-month subscription. You can contact me personally. That'll also be in the email. And I'm going to go ahead and say, if you would like to follow us on any of our social media platforms, you will also be eligible. So we'll give you all of those links. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. I hope you gained something from Stephanie's expertise and learned a little bit about Inkbench as well. Just going to do a quick check on if we have any more questions in the last couple minutes. And we look good. So again, from my perspective, this is Tom McCullough, VP of Sales. Thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us, reach out. We're here for demos and trials. And I'll pass it over for you for your closing remarks, Stephanie.
Thank you, everyone who has tuned in and stayed with us. I think there's a lot of useful tools here, and I look forward to seeing all of you back in business in the very near future.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.